Okay, here's our audience for Reynaldo's speech. Hands up. We got Parrish over here. Everybody. And
how do you define a friend? A friend is someone who respects your right to life, respects the right for you to live as you see fit, and one who should be treated as your equal. A terrorist is none of those. Now that seems common sense, but our policies in dealing with terrorists has not made sense lately. This summer, the media reported that we got back EOW Bo Bergdahl in exchange for releasing 5 Taliban militants. Where are those Taliban militants now? What are they doing? When my family heard the news, it touched off a debate in this military household. My stepfather, Carl, was with the British Royal Navy for over 25 years. My mother was a civilian specialist for the Department of Defense for over 20 years. And my husband, Eric, was a civilian professor for the U.S. Navy, teaching on the USS Constellation and USS Kennedy for over 7 years. And while all of them were affiliated with the Navy, with the military, each one represents a different point in the American political spectrum, from left to right. So I heard the debate from all sides, believe me. But I went even further and researched the pros and cons of the issue I have for you this evening. Should the U.S. ever negotiate with terrorists? My position is no. As a matter of policy, we should not. Tonight, I will give you 3 reasons. We should not negotiate with terrorists who do not respect our right to live. We should not negotiate with terrorists who do not respect our right to live as we see fit. We should not negotiate with terrorists whose barbaric methods will be legitimized by bringing them to the negotiation table. So let's tackle the first one. On 9/11, a group of Al-Qaeda terrorists killed over 3,000 people in this country. People who respect your right to live do not fly a plane into one tower to kill hundreds of innocent people. People who respect your right to live do not fly a second plane into a second tower to kill hundreds more. My husband Eric was at the World Trade Center before the first plane hit, just an hour before. We had friends who were working in the towers on 9/11 that morning. Only terrorists would fly a third plane into the Pentagon. Only terrorists would fly another plane and take the lives of innocent people in a field in Pennsylvania. How do you even begin negotiating with someone who does not believe that you have a right to existence? But in addition to not respecting your right to exist, we should not negotiate with terrorists who do not respect our right to live as we see fit. Wherever terrorism takes hold, personal autonomy disappears because of fear, intimidation, and coercion. Take the story of one Pakistani teenager named Malala. According to a biography by journalist Adam Ellick, 11-year-old Malala Yousafzai started writing a blog for the right of girls to have access to equal education in Taliban-infested Pakistan. She wrote under a pseudonym because of fear. At 15, she was about to board a bus when a militant came over and asked her name. When she told him, he responded by shooting her 3 times in the head. Fortunately, Malala survived and continues her work on behalf of other girls today. Wherever terrorism reigns, the citizens live in prisons. They are the prisons of having to wear burqas in the heat of the Middle East sun, and the prisons where dreams and aspirations for a better life are squelched. What should we do with those who use such brutal methods to achieve their goals? Bringing them to the negotiation table is not the answer. Terrorists and the brutal oppressive methods they use are legitimized in the eyes of the world and are seen as equal partners when brought to the negotiation table. Unlike terrorists, there are those that use peaceful means to achieve their goals, and as a civil society, they deserve our respect and our ears. And then there are the terrorists. This morning, in a speech announcing that Great Britain is now under a severe threat from the terror group ISIS, Prime Minister David Cameron urged the world community to make this distinction clear. Quote, "The root cause of this threat to our security is quite clear. It is a poisonous ideology of Islamist extremism that is condemned by all faiths and all faith leaders. It believes in using the most brutal forms of terrorism to force people to accept a warped worldview and to live in an almost medieval state, a state where its own citizens would suffer unimaginable brutality, including the barbaric beheadings of those who refuse to convert to their warped version of Islam, the enslavement and raping of women, and the widespread slaughter of Muslims by fellow Muslims, and of course, the exporting of terrorism abroad." So this is about a battle of Islam on one hand, and the extremists who wish to abuse Islam on the other. It is absolutely vital that we make this distinction. Negotiating with terrorists, however, blurs this distinction between legitimate and illegitimate groups. We cannot afford to do that. I have now given you the reasons why we should not negotiate with terrorists. We cannot negotiate with those who do not have any respect for your right to live. They should be treated as the murderers that they are. We cannot negotiate with those who do not have any respect for how you choose to live. Their methods of fear, coercion, are barbaric and brutal. They should be treated as criminals. We cannot bring them to the negotiating table. Doing so creates a false veneer of legitimacy to their organizations and the brutal methods that they use. Today, Great Britain did the right thing by taking the threat of terrorism seriously. We should do the same. This week, the Christian Monitor reported that a nonpartisan General Accounting Office found that the administration acted illegally in negotiating for the release of Bo Bergdahl without telling Congress first. Even Democrats like Dianne Feinstein have criticized this unilateral move. We are not immune to further terrorist threats. The threat that Britain felt today will soon be felt by our increasingly small world community. I urge you, if you are so moved this evening, to contact your congressional representative and tell him that it is in our best interest not to make any further negotiations with any other terrorist organizations. You cannot negotiate with those who only wish you harm. So how do you define a friend? They are not terrorists. Thank you.